Okay. Check 1, 2, and we are here. Here we are again, another episode of the Table Podcast. Hope everybody is doing well. It's raining. It was raining this morning.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it. It was raining cats and dogs.
It was.
I almost stepped in a poodle.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
No,
I just told a joke. When I tell a joke, can you at least laugh? Here's the thing. You guys are like co-hosts, and every time I get into deep water, you leave me alone. I talk about redheads, you look the other way.
No.
I tell cheesy jokes, you look the other way. Like, what? Seriously, this is what it comes down to. Hope everybody's doing well. It's been a great week. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I just want to say thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing and telling your friends. It means a lot. And we're going to keep this thing going and growing. And you know what's been bothering me lately? I've been seeing, I don't know. Sometimes it helps me to process my pet peeves if I talk about them.
Talk about it.
I've been seeing people post on social media when they're at the gym, they like hashtag let's get this bread. You seen people do this?
No.
Okay. And the reason that this bothers me is because let's get this bread means let's get this money.
Yeah.
But unless you're a professional athlete or you're a bodybuilder, you're not getting any bread when you're at the gym. So why are you telling everybody, let's get this bread? You're actually trying to lose that bread. Let's just, you should put on there, let's lose this bread. You work at Vaughn's and that's where you get your bread. So you need, why are you like, listen, there's nothing wrong with working at Vaughn's, but you should have pride in your job where you should be, let's go get this bread and show yourself at Vaughn's or show yourself selling cars or doing whatever you do. But quit unless you are a professional athlete, number one, okay? Unless you are a bodybuilder, unless you doing something athletic and getting paid.
Unless you're clocking in at that gym.
Unless you're getting cash money at that gym. Quit trying to be dope. Quit trying to be cool and putting, let's get this bread. You ain't getting no bread.
No.
It's because they hear people say stuff and they don't know what they mean. And they just like, I'm just going to start
let's
saying
get this
that.
bread. People do that so much.
Too much.
Let's get this bread. What's your favorite social media pet peeve?
Dude, I've been fasting.
You tagged me in something yesterday.
Let's end this podcast because that's a BFL. That's a bold-faced lie. You're not.
Oh, okay.
I've
been social media fasting. Guys, hey.
Oh, no.
I tagged you in something, but that's not part of my fast.
What is your fast? You can't fasting is food, bro.
No. Social media fast anytime.
Do you eat social media?
Anytime.
You consume it.
Listen.
You consume social media.
Oh.
Simple. No social media in the hours of 10 to 6 a.m.
But what is the reason for sleep? Yeah, because you're trying to get good sleep. You feeling rested?
I'm so sure.
No, I'm more of a curls for the girls kind of guy.
What is that? What is that?
Hashtag, that's what they need to be putting, you know?
Hashtag curls for the girls.
Yeah, man. Social media. It's funny how it's changed too. Like it continues to change,
What, social media?
Yeah, and just like what is the thing? Like the hashtags and everybody just wants to look dope.
Do you ever go back like at your first post on Instagram and stuff like that? Oh,
I actually go back and delete posts.
Oh, do you?
Because I don't want people to know the old me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
I want you to know me now.
Yeah.
Know me now. Quit trying to. If you weren't a part of my past, quit trying to be a part of it. You know what's also weird when people follow you? Like when people scroll back, because this is where I was leading into.
Yeah.
When people go, they meet you, and then they want to scroll back in your feed.
I see what you're saying.
And then, I have people that will follow me on social media, and they'll like every single one of my pictures that I've ever posted in my entire life.
Like, look at me.
Why would you do that?
Yeah. Did you have a MySpace?
Yeah, I had a Zanga, bro. Remember Zanga?
Zanga, I had a Zanga too.
Zanga was before MySpace. Taylor, you don't even know what Zanga is, huh? Zanga, see, that's when.
I don't know what
that's
y'all
when.
talking
That's when
about.
social
He's like, is
media
that anime?
Zanga, was that an anime show?
Naruto stuff?
Naruto stuff.
I feel like I need to go back and find my MySpace and delete it because.
Wait, they're still around? It's
Yeah,
still
they're
hosting?
still-
Like, I feel like you could still find it. It's
No.
archived somewhere. Like, I'm sure we could find our stuff.
I don't even know that I'd want to see it, to be honest with you. Yeah. There's just too much going on out there in this world. But that's the thing. That's a real thing. Like, people are going to have to deal with the consequences of social media. I hear that it keeps people from getting jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
Because they check that stuff. Like, you ever seen somebody and you're like, the social media version of them is not the same as the real life version of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a trip, dude. When you see somebody and you feel like you just got catfished, but you're not even like dating romantically, but it's like I see you and I feel like I have the same feeling as if we were dating romantically, and you fooled me. Catfished.
Yeah. It's like the people that you see, you only see their face or like even their shoulders up.
Dude.
And then when you see them in real life or in real person, you're like, whoa, I didn't realize like you look like this.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing, but it's just weird.
And the people that like to like everybody has their favorite angle.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Some people will do some people like this angle. Mm-hmm. Some people like depends on whatever your like strong attribute is.
Yeah.
If you got a chiseled jaw, speaking of chiseled jaw, I think I'm going to get jaw implants.
Really?
Cuz I want to see Taylor, you guys see what's up? Why are you laughing? Cuz I want to look like freaking Superman. Like I want a Superman jaw.
You got to put in the work.
That. How do you put in work for a
you
jaw?
Can't work your jaw, bro.
Oh yeah, you can.
I don't think you can.
How do you do jaw workouts?
Well, the thing is, you ever seen guys at the gym working neck? Have you ever seen guys at the gym working neck?
Guarantee you, if you YouTube it right now, you haven't seen those infomercials with the little ball?
Dude.
No, it's a thing, and you bite it. No, I swear, you bite it like this.
No, but I don't. Yeah, but that works the jaw dimple, right? I want like the chisel, like I want jaws. Like I want people, like if there was an emoji that you used to describe me, I want it to be the shark because I want jaws. You know what I'm saying? Why is that dumb? That is not dumb.
No, that little...
You guys don't think I'm funny? Is that what you're trying to say? You guys don't think that I'm funny? Is that what you're trying to say?
You were probably driving on the way here like...
No, I don't think of anything ahead of... No, you guys... Okay.
He's writing it down at the red light like, ooh, that's good.
Okay, all right. Well,
How to improve jawline. Hold on. I'm gonna figure this out.
Wait, do they actually have a surgery that will do that?
So yeah, it's actually one of the number one plastic surgeries for men right now is jaw implants. How I know that, I don't know. Probably on BuzzFeed or something. But it's like number one. So what they do is they do an implant in your jaw, and it actually gives you that superhero look. That's what I want, dude. I'm totally gonna do it. Yeah. My family has a curse too. Like they got this under my neck. Like it don't matter. It just like doesn't matter how thin you are. You're gonna get like you're a turkey or something.
It's funny because I feel like I notice jaw lines like really, really well. Like and I tell Jack like after we meet someone new, and I'm like, man, you see his jawline?
What a jawline.
Gosh.
You got the jaw on that guy.
It's so weird that you notice things like that. I'm like, well, you don't know what it's like to walk around with no profile. You know what I mean?
Yep.
With no profile.
Hey, it's true.
I'm just one giant thumb over here.
It is. Like, potato.
Yeah.
Could you look at me in the eyes, please? Like, you don't ever see me posting side shots.
Why
do you think I cater to the cameras head on like this?
Yeah.
You don't see me like this.
Nope.
No, I'm going to do it. Not in a million years.
Not gonna do
Anyway, on the podcast today, Mattie Montgomery. He is an incredible human being. You might know him from the legendary band For Today. We did some screamo lessons.
Yeah.
You used to do screamo. You got the old McDonald YouTube video? My brother used to do some screamo.
I didn't.
We should have had you and Mattie do a scream off. That's what you guys should have done.
He did it professionally.
He tried. Well, you're pretty professional.
No,
you don't give yourself enough.
Hey,
quit talking down on yourself. Okay, you don't give yourself enough credit. He has like thousands and thousands of views on that video. If I'm not.
Yeah, dude, but it's so
mistaken.
old and
who cares? Sometimes something old has to catch on.
But
you find it?
Listen.
Oh, here we go.
I only want to watch it if we can. Hold on. I only want to watch it if we go through the comments too.
Oh, why are they so good?
For sure we will. Okay, just so you guys know, hold on.
If you don't like this, you can fast forward to the interview, by the way. But
we're gonna pause it real fast, and then we're gonna do this thing. But 104K views already on this video.
Who is that?
Caleb Logan's little brother.
104,000 views?
Yes, on this video alone.
This is Drew Hand's video. Dude.
Oh,
bro.
Why is it so pixelated? I don't remember that. It's Jeep in the back.
How epic are you guys, though? Just out in the middle of Yosemite, just beating some drums shirtless. Who is that guy? Oh.
An old McDonald's
So stupid,
bro, it's not stupid. It's sick.
Look at Josh Ledesma getting it over there.
Dude.
Oh.
Bro. Dude.
Oh, good.
If I saw you guys, like, I'd totally want to be your friends.
No, bro. You
No,
wouldn't.
look at Sam Justice go.
Sam?
The outfit changed.
What legends.
Okay.
Hey, I will say this, though. We should bring it back. I think we should ask Mattie if you do you guys can do like like, what is it called? A duet? It's probably not duet if it's screamo. It's probably like a collab.
I do think we should do a nursery rhyme hardcore album.
Look at some of these
Every
comments.
time I
This
hear
makes
it.
sense every time I hear it. If it was a full song, I would purchase it.
Wow,
Isn't it? I'm pretty
we
sure
need
it's
to
a full song.
monetize this.
Hardcore with keyboards. At the beginning, it sounds more like black metal.
This guy sounds like Jose from Liquid Metal. Oh, dude, Liquid Metal.
Wow, I like metalcore and
Dude, do
everything.
you remember Liquid Metal?
But this really sucked because of no form of guitars,
guitars
even though
used,
the voice
and his
was
voice wasn't even using the. What is these guys feeling? Wait, go down. Cheers! This cheers me up. Awesome,
More of this, please.
dude. Awesome voice. That's right.
Best cover ever.
The line dancing was the
Epic.
best bit. Friend, so what music do you listen to?
Me 1 year ago.
You guys,
This is when you realize your music
Is this
career
what-
is ending. Oh no!
Wow, who said that?
Before it started.
No, that's a troll, dude. That's so a troll.
But Brittany Johnson
Dim
loves it.
squats though. JK,
squats,
do you know
though.
how hard I laugh? This is my favorite. Dude,
funny.
honestly
Oh,
though,
so
I think it's
good.
epic, and
I
I think we
love
should
it.
bring it back, and I think we should do a collab, and I think people love it because they have spoken, because it has over 100,000 views. There's a lot of videos out there that don't have
No, it's
over
10 it's
100,000
like 10
views.
years old.
Doesn't matter. Is it 100,000 views or is it not? Does it matter how many years? No. It's all good. All good in the hood. Oh, you guys agree? We should do it. Bring it back? Yeah. We'll talk to Mattie about that. Anyway, Mattie Montgomery on the podcast. He's doing an incredible event here in Fresno, Clovis area. If you are in the Valley, next week you'll hear about that. Also, he tells us a big, big secret at the end of the podcast. And he first told it here, first time talking about it publicly. So I think that you'll enjoy it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mattie Montgomery.
First the barricade, now the table.
Boom, boom. Headphone it up. Rock and roll. Do you eat a lot of McDonald's?
No. Save it. Save those kind of questions for the
For the podcast?
podcast. That's quality banter.
Okay.
I do listen to some Wesley Willis on occasion, though.
Really?
Has anyone here? No one here's ever heard of Wesley Willis.
Well, who is that?
Wesley Willis. He's dead now. He was a. This is gonna sound so messed up. He was a big, fat, mentally handicapped black guy. Who
Very
not
good.
mentally.
You're very
I
good
don't
at
wanna
descriptive
say,
words
I don't wanna
already.
Say handicapped. He was developmentally challenged, right? And so,
Are you good at being politically correct? I'm guessing
No.
the answer is probably no.
but he, so he has, he had like a dark spot in the middle of his forehead because of the way he would greet everybody. Was by like gently headbutting them, and he made music. And people, I mean, he made a living making music. Like people would come to his concerts. I dated a girl in college that had gone to one of his concerts.
What kind of music?
It's just really indescribable.
What? Like what genre? Like is it?
Like his MIDI keyboard with like a drum machine in the background, and it's just.
And then what does he do on top? Like spoken word?
He sings a little bit. He has a song. Here, he has a song called "Rock and Roll McDonald's."
Rock and roll McDonald's.
Yeah.
Donald's?
Yeah, but he pronounces
Miguel,
it
can you look
like
that up?
"Rock and Roll McDonald's." That's kind of how he says it.
No, he leaves the D.
The LDS.
LDS.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jokes you could have with that, but we'll
right.
leave that alone.
So he but he also, I feel like I should say, he also has many other songs.
Oh gosh.
McDonald's is a place to rock.
And his other songs.
You're
Very loud. It's a good place to listen to the music.
that way down.
People flock here to get down to the rock music. Rock and
you
roll
go. Oh, this is him.
McDonald's.
Yeah, that's it.
Rock and roll McDonald's. Rock and roll McDonald's. Rock and roll McDonald's.
Oh. This is wait, so you're a fan of this guy?
I mean, no. Nobody's a fan of this guy. You know, people appreciate.
Oh my gosh.
So it was
You
just
can
like
stop
he
it.
was just, you know, he would make music.
Is this how you
and
got
have-
is this
and
how you
have
got into
fun.
music?
Yeah, this is how I got started in music. I thought if Wesley Willis can do it, I definitely can.
Talk to me about that. How did you get into music?
Are we podcasting?
Yeah,
right now?
we're podcasting.
Oh shoot!
You have to go lips to mic.
Well, I feel
We're
like
always
I should
podcasting.
I feel like I should make the disclaimer that Wesley Willis also has tons of completely inappropriate songs.
Well, it's no one's
So
judging
don't
you. No one's judging you for that
All right.
here. It's
This is
listen
a
at
long
your
time.
own risk. It's
Totally.
it's the old you.
Yeah, it was BC. before
that was
sanctification
BC.
set in.
How did you get into music though?
I got into music. My mom actually is a singer and a cellist and a pianist.
Really?
Yeah, she's a classically trained choral vocalist, and I mean, she was in a choir that won a Grammy.
Really?
So she's got a little certificate that says, yeah, she did a recording that won a Grammy, so she's proud of that. So I was always kind of around music growing up.
Yeah.
But then I found out about punk rock, found out about Minor Threat and the Ramones and the Clash and stuff like that. And I thought, this is what I want to do. Mm-hmm. It's going to make my mom so angry. So I went and got a leather jacket and a cheap drum set. And I played drums in punk bands, like political punk bands all through.
Really?
Like high school. And then we started hearing this music with screaming in it. And my friends thought, yeah, we should do that. And so I was in this 3-piece band. I played drums and we all took turns. I remember the moment sitting on the front porch of my high school girlfriend's house, and we were all trying to see who was the best screamer. Mm-hmm. And it was me.
There's an art to actually screaming though, right? It's
Yeah.
not like
I mean, I sounded so
not
terrible in that moment, but yeah, there's some
you still do
some
it
art to it.
because you've hung up the boots, right? Like you're not traveling touring anymore,
Right. No,
So do you still do it? Because I feel like that's not like you sing in the shower, right? Like somebody would be like da 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 da, like
right.
singing in the shower. But
There's
you don't really
no real
scream.
context for that other than being in a metal band. You know, it's not, you're never like
Teach me how do you do it?
like gonna sign up in karaoke for
Teach
karaoke.
me how you do it right now. How do you do it? How do you scream appropriately?
Well, you know, the same way. That,
Like you're not.
That's pretty much it.
That's it?
Just louder. Yeah.
But isn't it kind of like here's my version of screaming.
Let's hear it.
So,
Come on.
but that would be like what I would do. It'd be a little bit more. It's
Sounded
kind of,
great, honestly.
It's kind of like a wild boar. Like, what are you? That's how I. So teach
Yeah,
me. I'm
I mean,
obviously
that's
not
it.
doing. No, it's not.
Well,
Don't flatter me. Don't flatter me
here's-
like I know what I'm doing.
Here's the thing. This is the big secret of that whole genre of music is that nobody sounds good doing that. Like kids make videos of themselves, YouTube videos of themselves doing like lip sync or doing vocal covers of our songs. And every one of them looks so dumb. And it's not because
Why are they screaming?
yeah, they're screaming full voiced with like maybe our music quietly in the background. Sometimes you can't even hear our music and it's just the kids screaming. And they'll send them to us like, you got to listen to this. And it just, everybody sounds terrible. But the truth is, if I was to do it, like in my, you know, the bathroom
Yeah, in
and
your
the hall,
bedroom, we're
and the
just
hall of my
videoing it.
mom's house with like screaming into a hairbrush like these kids are doing, it would sound terrible too. We've got compression and reverb and music behind us, and it's all mixed together to sound right. And so nobody really sounds good just screaming. You gotta.
You still haven't shown me how to do it, Matty.
Well, it's different for everybody.
Dude, you're one of those guys.
It's different. It's
You're
different
one of
for
those guys where it's like, hey, do what you do, and you're like, oh,
Well, this
come
is
on,
not what I
don't
do.
wanna
You-
Yo,
if you
come
want me to
on,
preach
act
the
like you
gospel
don't.
to you,
Come on, don't pull that card at this time like you don't remember.
Here's the real truth, man, is that I never really felt like much of a musician.
Really?
I was more of a writer. I mean, even when I was playing drums in a band, like I was writing short stories and poems and you know, started work on a play one time. Like I loved to write as a kid, and I you know, I would write even when I was playing drums. I'd write the lyrics for my bands, and the other guys, the singers, would sing them. And so you know, being able to write and preach, those are really the things that I felt like I brought to the table way more than going.
There it is.
Yeah,
That's
couldn't
pretty
leave that
good,
out.
though. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Did you have lots of other bands though leading up to?
I had some
success?
high
You
school
guys were
bands.
pretty successful.
It depends on who you ask, but
But I mean, especially
we
within
made a
that
living, which is
Yeah.
The vast majority of bands never get to do that. So yeah, we made a living.
Is that genre harder than other genres?
It's probably equally as hard as other genres, I guess.
Do you think it's one of those where it's like either you love it or you hate it? For the listeners, could it be considered what screamo? What is it considered?
Well, if we're getting technical, I don't know what kind of people you have listening.
All kinds of people.
So so I'm going to give you a lesson in music subgenre history. There was a genre of music at one point called emo.
Yeah,
and
it also had a look.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah,
the swoop,
eyeliner at times.
Yeah, like the Hot Topic sort of thing.
Yes, I shopped there.
Oh yeah, I never.
Yeah, that's not true.
I actually worked at 2 different Hot Topics in my life.
So good.
But the swoop, everything, eyeliner, just sadness all the time, whining. So emo music is just whiny,
sad and whiny.
Like fake poetic music for for like skinny kids that lose fights. Like that's what emo music is. And screamo music, there's a genre called screamo that actually was like an offshoot of emo that started probably around like the year 2000. Emo was around prior to that. Screamo started in about 2000, 2001 or 2 when guys started thinking like, we're going to put some screaming in this emo song. It makes it sound even more emotional. So when people call the music that I played screamo music, it like bums me out because it sounds like it's music for like sick, pale kids.
Was that your audience?
But not
Primarily?
always.
No.
I'm not a sick, pale kid.
No, you're definitely not.
But our music, I would have just called it metal or hardcore, which is like another. I know it has screaming.
Well, what's
in it,
the
but
difference then between metal and screamo?
So screamo music is
It comes
like
from emo, and
it comes from emo. It's
very poetic
it's
and
pretty,
aggressive.
It's pretty soft.
It's soft?
Compared to ours.
Okay.
It's more like melodic and soft and happy. Our music has like breakdowns and
right.
intensity, and we're singing about victory and battles and epic stuff, and those guys are singing about like.
When I was growing up, I grew up in obviously the church world, so that was like my parents' and grandparents' generation. That was the devil's music.
Totally, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you hear.
I heard all about
right?
it. Yeah, it's funny, man. We started our band, and we thought we're just preaching the gospel to people.
From day one, was that? From day one, were you like a believer when you?
I told the guys I wouldn't join your band unless we can do a Bible study together every day.
Really?
And you'll let me preach the gospel from stage. And they said, all right.
And that was from day one.
From day one. I wouldn't even join the band unless they would let me do that. So, we're going into these places, and I mean, there's 4 people coming to the show and 4 people getting born again at the show, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And so we're just fired up, and God is just blowing our minds, and we're sharing the gospel, and we're loving on these kids that never get loved anywhere, and God is moving. And then, pretty quick, other Christians came in to try to tell us we were doing it wrong.
In what way?
Well, 2 ways primarily. The first was backslidden, lukewarm guys in bands who were older than us and who said, listen, when I was your age, I was all about that Jesus stuff, but then I grew up, and now I'm more wise now. And they think that wisdom is the opposite of zeal. And so they did their best to try to tell us that, you got to be, just go sit down and grab a beer with them and just talk about life and just be a buddy. You don't have to, always share the gospel. You don't have to make it so black and white. And so that happened, and we sort of respectfully, enthusiastically disagreed. And then also at the same time, there were people saying like, listen, I used to listen to your band, but then my pastor told me that it's demonic. The way your band sounds, you're screaming and stuff, and that's what demons do. Like, it's scary music, so that's definitely not God. So, me and my mom are going to go to the Chris Tomlin concert, and I can't listen to your band anymore.
Shout out to Chris Tomlin.
Dude, he's awesome. I love him.
How did you deal with that, though? Because obviously, you're going into it out of passion in some ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just what you So how would you respond to that type of criticism from the people that you're trying to? I mean, you're a part of, you're a Christian, Christ follower.
Yeah.
And then you have other Christ followers saying what you're doing is the opposite of that. How did you? I mean, how old were you when you started that band?
Gosh, I was 20, I think, when I joined the band.
So how were you navigating some of that?
I early on sort of decided that I'm going to base the weight that I give someone's opinion on the fruit of their life. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a guy that never, ever, ever leads anyone to Christ and doesn't do anything in ministry, and, plays in a band and just gets drunk at the bar every night after their set, mm-hmm. I'm probably not going to take tips on ministry from that guy. Yeah. That's the fruit of his life, and I'm just not interested. And so the people that really had a problem with us were people that just weren't bearing good fruit, just angry, divisive, bitter people. And so it was just sort of eventually we just kind of said, hey, thanks so much for your input. Bless you. I hope that God uses you mightily, and we're just going to. Was it always that easy though?
Like it was literally that easy? It didn't burden you emotionally or make you like, that kind of.
Oh no,
sucks.
it totally. Yeah, I mean that's a whole several year process of coming to that point in a nutshell. But yeah, at first it was like, we got to have a meeting and sit down and really talk this out, and let's look at the Bible. We'll talk for 6 hours one night at a venue, and then we got to go our separate ways for the night, but then let's pick this back up tomorrow, and we're really going to talk about this.
And so in the beginning, were you concerned that they were right? I mean, if you're going that, like, were you concerned? Like, I mean, why?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just super stubborn, and
mm-hmm. So are you kind of geared that way anyway? Like, just whatever then.
Well, I just thought, well, people are coming to Jesus.
Yeah, it was just simple.
Yeah, I just couldn't understand. Like 15 people gave their lives to Christ last night. So how is that bad? Yeah. Like I understand that these, their objection was, you're coming on too strong and you're preaching the gospel like super hard from stage, and then you're going out into the crowd and talking to everybody after the show. That's kind of that could be off-putting or alienating. And my thought was, well, maybe you guys can meet the people that feel put off or alienated by that. Go stand by the door and find the people that are angrily walking out. You really just
didn't care that. You just
go meet them, and I'm going to get everybody else. And I just thought if people are experiencing the love of Jesus, then it's probably okay.
Was your goal in it ever to be like? Was your goal success ever? I mean, you became successful in that.
We had a talk in our first week in the band, and we said, preaching the gospel like this is probably going to make it so we never succeed. Are we still willing to do it? And we all enthusiastically said yes. Huh. If all we do is a 6 months of tour, at house shows and local pubs, then we'll just pray that God breaks out of those house shows and local pubs, and that's it. I mean, we never thought we're going to put out 7 studio albums and tour the world and, have, sell hundreds of thousands of copies of our records and get nominated for Dove Awards and stuff. Yeah. Like nobody imagined any of that stuff was going to happen. And so that was all kind of a great surprise and a fun ride. But we never, the purpose wasn't success. The purpose was souls. Yeah.
Were you weren't always playing with other Christian bands though, right?
We were mostly not playing with other Christian bands.
So you almost kind of had a sneak attack going on, right? I mean, people wouldn't
because of the kind of music that we played. I mean, we got invited to go on tour with satanic bands, openly anti-Christ. I mean, it would be like our merch table with stuff about Jesus and Bibles set on the merch table, free Bibles if you want one. And then right next to us would be pentagrams and 666 and F God shirts and like all sorts of crazy stuff. And we'd just be on tour with these guys. And we would all sort of joke about the irony of our friendship, and appreciate that. And sometimes guys in bands would get born again and really reached, and it would be great. But yeah, it was, we were not the band that was playing at youth groups and Christian festivals. We never got invited to go on Winter Jam. I don't know why.
Yeah. You should have, though.
That would have been something.
When you think back on that, I think that then you have a lot to teach, because people in our world, especially with societal climate, they struggle with how am I welcoming and loving and have a relationship with people who are different than me?
Right.
I think, your experience on the road, that's probably has to be one of the great lessons that you learned.
Absolutely.
How to do that? How did you do that?
Well, a lot of trial and error. There were definitely times that I stepped all over people's toes and fractured relationships and pushed too hard and that sort of thing.
What did that usually look like for you? Like when you knew you crossed the line?
It would I guess it would look like feeling. I would always go into a tour just we'd want to serve and just bless the guys in the other bands, and they would kind of come in with their guard up and think, oh, this is the Christian band we've all heard about. This is going to be weird for us, and so we'd try to talk to them about how's tour been, what's been going on with you, and let them know, like, we may be those Christian guys, but we also still have a lot in common. We're touring bands, we play the same genre, we have a lot of friends in common, we're all playing the same venues where, we've got a lot to talk about. And so we'd start off by talking about the things we have in common. And then when we feel that there's a trust established, I would normally try to get one guy away from the rest of the band, because when their friends are around, you got to act tough and oh, whatever, I don't need that stuff. Right. But you can confess, actually, I don't really believe this stuff that we sing about when your friends and fans aren't around. So I'd take a guy out for coffee or whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes I would do that early,
okay,
where he doesn't really trust me that much. And I'd be like, dude, tell me about your soul. What's, what do you think about this God stuff, and then he'd tell me, and I'd say, well, here's where you're wrong. We weren't on a level to have that conversation yet. And it was never, I'm never attacking anybody. You're trying to dominate anyone, but there are several guys that are coming to mind now that we had that conversation. That was the last conversation we had.
Really?
And, I don't regret trying.
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I had the boldness and the courage and just the care for those guys to try.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a kind of a tightrope walk sometimes, is, how do I make sure that I carry the gospel with urgency, while also respecting the spiritual autonomy of another person? I can't make them love Jesus. And so that's kind of a thing I think a lot of people struggle with, and something that I got pretty good at over the years of just knowing where I can push and where I can't push, and being able to really walk that line.
What ended up being the best for you? What was you're big on evangelism. So what did you learn in that as far as being able to be around people? Because if they didn't let's say like somebody told you, I don't believe like you, and I don't think that what you believe is true. At what point, where do you go in the conversation?
Oh, well, you start with listening. I think that's the key, is you just say, well, what do you believe? What are you about? Like, what are you really passionate about? And, if you listen to somebody long enough, you're gonna hear the holes in their structure. And just recently, I was at an airport in Atlanta, for example, and I was buying a phone charger from a shop. I had left mine at home, and I went to buy a phone charger in the shop, and this girl starts asking me about the tattoos on my hands. And I have the name of God, Yahweh, Yod, He, Vav, He, on my hand. And she said, what does that mean? And I was explaining it to her. And I said, do you have a relationship with God? Well, now we're talking about God. Yeah. So do you have a relationship with God? And she said, I do, but I kind of have my own beliefs. And I said, tell me about those. What do you believe? And she said, well, I think there is a higher power, but I think it's a woman. And, and I think that all beliefs are basically the same. Everybody teaches morality and everything. And so I think it doesn't really matter what you believe as long as you believe something. And that's I think a great conversation starter. So my first thing, bit of instruction, we're getting into like real practical evangelism training. This is cool stuff. So if people are taking notes, the first point, to recap, point number one is that you listen first. And point number two is that you find common ground. This girl said, all religions are basically the same. It doesn't matter what you believe as long as you believe something. And I said, you know what? I kind of agree with you. And she was off put by that. And I said, all religions do have a lot of the same facets. They all teach that we should be kind and generous and humble. And I think that's awesome. I think that everybody should live like that. And she's saying, yeah, that's amazing. Cool. I totally agree. And I said, the problem is though, I haven't, and I'll bet you haven't either. I mean, and it's kind of crazy that in Islam and Judaism and Christianity, and I mean, even atheists know that we should be kind and generous and humble. The whole world agrees on an objective moral standard. Throughout the expanse of human history, all across the planet, we've all agreed that there's an objective moral standard. And yet not one of us has ever reached that standard. All of us have fallen short of that. And she's sort of looking at me like, oh no, you're right. And so then the question is, what do we do about that? I mean, how do we fix that, right? Do we just try harder next time? Is that it? Because, that's going to be a weird, a weird moral of the story that we're all just trying harder next time. And that's what life is for us. I said, there's got to be an answer, because if we have been given a standard by God, whatever he or she is, then we should be very concerned with what might happen if we have spit in the face of that standard, because I've been greedy and arrogant and lazy and destructive to a lot of people. And I said, but here's the crazy thing, is that as many religions and religious ideologies and philosophies as there are in the world that agree on that moral standard that we should be kind and humble, loving and generous, there's only one answer in all of human history combined. And that is that he that knew no sin became sin, so that I through him might become the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. I said, Jesus is the only answer. The fact that he took my sin upon himself is the only answer that has ever been given to humanity for this issue of what we call sin. And I said, talk to her a bit about what it meant to follow Jesus and to really surrender your life to him. And said, and that's actually a decision you can make right here at work in your little electronics kiosk in the Atlanta airport. Is that something that you want? And she actually ended up being born again. And the thing that opened the door was I started with listening. And then I stood with her on common ground. Find something you can agree with. Like, I don't have to just jump in with like, you're wrong about everything. Yeah, she's wrong about everything. Like, totally. But like, let me find something that maybe I can like validate and say, you know what, I see that. But maybe there's like a side of it or a dimension or an implication of it that you haven't really considered yet. And like, let's just seek truth together. Let's find a starting point, and that is the common ground. And then let's seek truth together. And so that's obviously not everybody that I do that with gets born again, but that's usually my method. And even if they say, well, I see how you could see it that way. There was a Muslim girl in the Australia airport that I had a similar sort of conversation with her. And she said, okay, I see how you could see it that way, but I don't. And she did not end up getting born again. And so, there's but we ended the conversation as friends. It felt like, it was a kind conversation. And I think if we can live to have another conversation with these people, that'd be a good thing.
Well, listening too, I mean, wouldn't you say it transcends the conversation just about salvation? Just being a listener is probably one of the more difficult things in our world. Like, I mean,
without a doubt.
What are some of the things that you learned about listening? I notice a lot of times when you're in conversation with people, even when they're trying to listen, they're thinking about the next thing that they're going to say. How do you be a good listener?
Well, I don't ever think about anything, so
it's like
it's just totally blank. I'm not even hearing what you're saying right now. I think that it's. I feel like if my wife ever heard heard me giving advice to people on how to be a good listener, she might like,
"Don't ask him."
Yes. I think the key is just to value the person you're talking to. to care about the person, and in the context of evangelism, to care about them more than just a testimony that you can't wait to tell your friends, or an argument to win or a point to prove.
Right.
To understand that the person you're talking to has an entire worldview that they're operating from. They have a collective whole of past experiences. They have, parents and hopes and dreams, and they have disappointments and gifts and talents and abilities. They have a unique perspective. And I think that's such a beautiful, valuable thing. And so to be able to see that and to understand that they can show you the world from a perspective you've never seen it before, gives value to the person you're talking to and to what's coming out of them. And so even if they're totally wrong about what they're saying, if the conclusion that they've come to is wrong, they didn't get there for no reason.
Right.
There's something going on inside of them that makes that conclusion seem like the most logical conclusion. Right. And so when you're not just hearing what they're saying, but you're asking yourself, well, why are they saying
what's
it?
their journey been? Why do they think that way?
Right. It starts to make a little bit more sense. And I think it gives you the ability to appreciate them, even if their opinion is maybe wrong.
Yeah. What do you think about that with even just somebody that has a bad attitude? I mean, there's a reason that they got there. It's like, what is going on in their life that is, there's more than what you see that meets.
Absolutely.
That meets the eye.
Yeah.
You talked about your if your wife were sitting here, she would probably say that, why is he
I'm a great husband.
Why
That's
is
just
he
a joke.
Answering a question on how to be a good listener? It brings up in my mind though an interesting point, because it seems like when it comes to your work or calling and listening is a big thing. And yet I hear so many people. I was at a funeral of somebody who just a world-renowned minister. And it was so interesting to me because some of the things that he was known for being good at in the public, he wasn't good at with his own family. It was like he loved the whole world, but I was at home and I had a missing void.
Wow.
I find that to be, I remember sitting there thinking like, wow, how crazy that is, but also saying how normal, how human that has become.
Absolutely.
You see business owners who are extremely good at business, but their actual home life maybe doesn't have the same success, or they have to be conversational in their job, right? They're good at talking to people, but then when they're home, they shut down with their spouse and don't know how to have conversation, not interested in their kids. They can talk to the world, but they don't talk to us. You bring up some of that dynamic of, hearing even the way that you approach, salvation in Christ, you have to be a skilled listener in some way to be able to do that, to hear beyond the words that you're saying. Why are you saying it? Where is it coming from? Finding holes in their structure, as you put it. Why do you think that can be difficult sometimes for us in a home or beyond our work?
Right. Well, I think because I have such an affinity and genuine affection for that type of listening, sometimes I feel like I'm listening on a different level than my wife needs me to listen. Like if she says, "Hey, the trash needs to go out," I'm thinking, what was the tone of her voice like, and how did her eyes look at me when she said that, and like, I wonder how her day was and what's going on and her soul, like how's her prayer life, right? And
You're overanalyzing.
I'm 10 steps beyond the trash needs to go out.
She just wants the trash out,
right? And it's like I just need to take the trash out, And so I love those sort of deep conversations, but we have to also be functional in a practical sort of way. Someone has to say, "Hey, the trash needs to go out," and I need to get that. And even with my wife, I'm great at talking about spiritual, emotional things. I love those conversations. I think she would tell you that I'm a good listener when it comes to those sorts of things. And sometimes my brain just doesn't think about, I'll leave the house and realize I didn't brush my teeth in the morning. There's things that I will just space on that are like the regular practical things. Yeah. And I don't miss a thing when it comes to the spiritual condition of a person's heart. But when it comes to just the regular everyday sort of things, sometimes I don't focus as much on those. And that's, I think, an area that we can grow on. However, to add to that conversation, I think that there's an issue in ministry that we have built an idol out of the platform. and we give our best self to the platform, and we give our families our scraps. I mean, if we look at the way that we, I was counseling a guy, one of my staff members a few months ago, and he and his wife were feeling distant. And I said, well, how are your dates going? And he's like, well, we haven't been doing a lot. Things were a little bit tight financially. Mm-hmm. And I said, so you cut out time with your wife? Like, that's the thing you cut out? You still got a gym membership and a Netflix subscription and all these other things, but you cut out time with your wife, time alone with your wife. And I said, man, you can't make your wife settle for the scraps of you. Give your work and your calling and your mm-hmm. art and your ministry the best, sharpest, most passionate part of you, and then tell your family, well, you get what's left over when the ministry has taken everything else. Yeah. And that goes for money and time, energy, attention, affection, creativity, all of that. And so I think that's something we have to understand, that in putting our best self, our first and our best into our family, we actually build a structure that can support a ministry. But when we put our best self into our ministry, we actually build a structure that will inevitably choke the life out of our family. Mm-hmm. I know you've been around ministry long enough to have seen tons of pastors' kids run away from ministry because they resent they resent the ministry because they resent that their parents, that they lost their parents to the ministry. I've seen wives leave or come close to leaving their husbands because they resent their husbands for giving their best selves to the ministry. And it's just not, ministry's not worth that.
Right.
It's not. I think about the Muslim religion. It's statistically the fastest growing religion in the world right now. Really? And I've never met a Muslim evangelist. Mm-hmm. No one's ever handed me a tract that says, consider Islam, or came to knock on my door. Do you have a minute to talk about, Allah mm-hmm. or whatever? All they do is family. That's all they do. They have kids, and they commit themselves to teaching those kids about their religion. Mm-hmm. And it's the fastest growing religion in the world. Now, what we do is we, tell our family with our actions, they can go to hell for all we care. I've got a calling. And then we gather this, big group of people to come watch us do our calling, and they're impressed by our gifting. Yeah. And then they get close enough to see that our marriage is fractured and our kids are disobedient and rebellious, resentful and angry about the fact that they have to even be there. And these people that came in because of our gifting, they see our character, they see our family, and they leave just as fast as they came in. And so we're actually losing ground in the advancement of the kingdom because we don't do family well. Mm-hmm. If we don't do family well, we will perpetually undermine our own evangelistic efforts. In fact, if we could either do family or evangelism, we should choose family 100 times out of 100. Yeah. Because if that's all we did, we would gain ground. Yeah. People would be knocking our doors down saying, how do you have a marriage like that? How are your kids this committed to each other and to their parents? I've never seen a family like this. Teach us. Yeah. Like, we would not have to beg the world to come to our events if they could see amazing, strong families in our churches.
Do you think it also, though, goes, to me, the issue goes beyond even though the church world. I think that it certainly applies 100% everything you're saying. I'd agree with. But you see the same symptoms in different industries.
Absolutely.
We're in the church world, like we're in the ministry, so we see it. But I see it in business owners that throw themselves into their business and neglect their family. I see artists who throw themselves into their art and forget what matters most. You said in regards to ministry and church, they idolize the platform. Do you think that principle is the same in every other demographic? Is it? When we talk about platform, we're talking about success. We're talking about, is that what it is? Is it priorities out of whack? It seems like it's bigger than just
right. Well, and there's the whole sense. I think the common justification that I'm doing this for you, you're my family, and I'm getting this money, and I'm working hard, and I'm, look at the house we live in and the car you drive, and all of that. I pay for all that with this, but. I've got 3 sons, and we have a nice car that my kids ride in, and they do not care. they could be, you know, we could be riding down the road in a Fred Flintstone car where I have to
Right.
push it with my feet, and they'd be like, yeah, it's fine, it's cool. You know, they don't give a rip at all. They don't care what brand name is on the front of the car or anything like that. You know, my kids value presence over productivity. And when we become adults and we become slaves to a system that values productivity over presence, we forget that simplicity as a kid. I mean, I would have done anything to have my dad around. Like that's to just have him there, to get to see him on the sideline while I'm playing a baseball game. I don't care how much money's in the bank account, you know, I don't care what kind of house we live in. If we're there together, that's all right with me.
You talk a lot about simplicity. You mentioned that even earlier tonight. Is that is that like a core value of yours? Do you think of that often about keeping things simple?
Yeah, you know, I think like I said earlier that you know, unity requires simplicity. If I have a really complex, convoluted worldview, and you said, "Hey, what are your core values?" and I gave you 25 minutes of, you know, subtly nuanced theological statements, I would kind of put myself on an island where you have to agree with all of this if you want to stand with me. I'd have to stand alone because nobody can even follow that, right? But if you say, well, what are your core values? And I say Jesus, that Jesus would be exalted and known for who he is. Well, you could stand there with that. And the guy at First Baptist Church can stand with me on that. And so for the sake of unity, I think simplicity is important. And I think that it's an important thing in any area of leadership, that we give people a vision simple enough to follow. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it means that it's simple enough to follow, that it's not impossible to apply or to grab a hold of, that they can catch our vision and be aware of our vision and keep it in mind and explain it to others, and that the vision would be simple enough that people can run with it. And so I think that in any area of leadership and business and ministry and family, that simplicity is a requisite for being able to give anybody the tools to follow you.
Yeah. To be simple, though, you have to be intentional, right? I mean,
without a doubt.
It almost takes, it takes more time to do that, to keep things simple or to communicate in a way that other people can understand. What are some of your keys for fighting for simplicity? Like, how do you do that? Because that's intentional. We're complex and all over the place, and when we talk, we run on tangents and just go. How do you fight to be simple?
You know, I take my idea and then I ask myself, how would T.D. Jakes explain this idea? Because he can say in one sentence.
He doesn't even have to think about it.
It takes me 25 minutes to get across. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah, you know, I think I just have to kind of.
Is that an easy thing for you or hard for you?
It's a little hard. I tend to process as I talk, and so, you know, I'll spend 10 minutes explaining a concept until I get to the point where I can say, actually, here's what I'm trying to say, and get it to you in a phrase. So if you want to just skip everything else and hear the in conclusion statement, that would probably be a more effective way to listen to me. But I think that we have to just ask ourselves the question, like, what do you really want? You know, what's really the goal? As I'm having an idea and you know, if I'm angry with my employees because they're not as productive as I want them to be, what's the real goal? Do I want better employees? Do I want my employees to accomplish the tasks I give them better? What tasks am I even giving them? Yeah. And what is the main objective of those tasks? Could I simplify what I'm giving them so that they can be more productive at one thing instead of semi-productive at 8 things? Yeah. And so I think that we as leaders, we just have to be aware of what it is we really want to accomplish, what really is our goal. And then to make achievable, you know, many goals along the way. But, I think that a key to simplicity or is, as you said, intentionality. Yeah. But I think that we have got to be able to kind of internally process what it is we want, how and why and when we want it. Yeah. And make sure that we communicate that in a concise way and also that we work toward that in a practical way.
You talking about working toward that. You mentioned goals. Are you goal oriented? Are you someone that is that how are you? Do you live your life in a rhythm like that, where you set goals, achieve goals, set new goals?
That sounds fantastic.
Do you do that?
I aspire. It's a goal of mine to do that one day.
Yeah, that is your goal. Your goal is to have goals.
That's right. Well, I'll set goals like we want 12,000 people to join us at the Altar Conference in April. And then along the way, there's a million little goals. And so it feels like I'm kind of juggling all the different, strands or mini goals. Maybe sometimes the dream is so big that it feels like, we've got steps along the way, but we don't really take time to stop and celebrate. Like, yes, we just had that meeting. That was all. It's like we kind of just gotta just keep going. So,
are you goal oriented other areas of your life though? Do you find or you just kind of go with the flow?
I'm just kind of go with the flow. My wife is more goal oriented. She's good at that.
Because I wonder about that. There's people that it almost seems instinctual. That's one thing that I notice about you. Talking about instincts, gifting, you can call it whatever. But even like with the evangelism thing. I obviously know there's a universal call to share our faith and live our faith and that kind of stuff. But that is just, it's pretty evident that that's like something that seems like really natural to you. True?
I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
It didn't come naturally. It came because I just forced myself to do it over and over again. It wasn't like I woke up one day just great at communicating the gospel and never being clumsy and stupid about it. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was worth doing, even if I was clumsy and stupid in the process. Mm-hmm. And now it flows. And today I was in the bank at Wells Fargo and took 15 minutes, and shared the gospel with the guy that was helping me at the bank. And the girl that sat at the desk next to him, she was a believer. And so she was excited and she rolled over and chimed in on the conversation and, got to pray with that guy. He didn't get born again, but he knows what it means to be born again now, which is great. And so, I think that it's like practice, and it's something that I think is worth practicing.
Do you really think that it's just practice though? You don't think there's any type of...
Yeah.
So what about somebody who is like, do they have the same obligation or responsibility? Somebody who's introverted and shy and literally gives them, makes them break out in hives if they have to speak to somebody.
I think they have the same opportunity.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I'd say obligation or responsibility. I think that they have the same opportunity. And I think what we tend to do in the church, we'll have people come into church and we'll give them a personality test and say, where are your giftings and strengths? And, maybe you're an administrator and you're a greeter and you're a speaker and you're a musician. And we fit people's assignments. We give them opportunities based on their natural disposition. Mm-hmm. But if we only operate within the parameters of our natural disposition, we disqualify ourselves from the chance to see the supernatural intervention of God. I think that, to put it in a concise way, I think that we have to stop asking ourselves what we're good at and start asking ourselves what God is good at. Mm-hmm. Because the world needs way less of my personality and way more of Jesus' personality.
You don't think God made people with their personality?
Well, I think that he gave each person something that's maybe a little easier for them. Uh-huh. But in all honesty, man, I'm an introvert, very much so. If it was up to me, like,
how do you define introvert though?
I am
does that mean
rejuvenated by being away from people?
Right.
It doesn't mean I'm terrified of people, but if I had my preference and there was no spiritual implications, man, I'd live in a cabin in the woods and, come down once a month to stock up on supplies and, and then head back up to the cabin.
Right.
And I think I failed every speech class that I ever took, in life. And the things that I do are not all things that I was always natural or comfortable or confident in.
Have you always been an influencer though? Because to me, when I see you beyond communicator, beyond, persona, to me, you seem more of like an influencer, like in music, whatever. Like to what I see, it seems like people have giftings. When I'm talking about giftings, when they do that, it just starts to like flourish, starts to work. There's like some sort of something behind, and I feel like then it causes other gifts to have to be developed in order to sustain that thing. You know, is what I'm trying to say. So, if, like for you, do you feel like the core of it is? Do you feel like influence has been something that do people want to listen to what you have to say, be around?
I think my real gift is vision, just ideas. I mean, and those ideas are things that people want to listen to and get around.
Right. And so your vision, your ideas then require your weaknesses to have to be developed in order to sustain the vision.
Areas of communication, connection, relationship, things that maybe I wasn't super comfortable with.
Right. Because what I'm thinking, just thinking out loud here, is how do you draw that line? Being in the music world, if you can't sing, to say that I'm going to be a singer, we would say, well, you don't have the singing, you don't have that gift. You know, and you were talking a second ago that even if you don't have the gift or it's not something that you have, you know, to not check God's ability to do the impossible out of the, yet I mean, there's not less, I can't even count on a hand people that couldn't sing and all of a sudden they can sing. You know what I mean? Sing.
Yeah.
And that's something that you can see. Other giftings you cannot see.
Right.
Where does the line get drawn? I hear what you're saying, that your gift of vision, your gift of, being a dreamer, right? Ideas. It requires you to have to develop things that maybe you're not good at.
Right.
Where does that line get drawn? To where the line between no, this is not going to happen, and
right. Well, and I think that there's really two, I think, goals. Like if you, for example, earlier today. I was with a businesswoman here in Fresno, awesome woman, older lady.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, will you please pray for me? And she said, oh no, I couldn't do that. I don't have that talent. It's not a talent I've been given. I'm not able to do that. That was her real answer. And I said, well, I don't think that's a talent at all. I think it's a conversation. You know, I think maybe this is an opportunity for you to do something that you don't think you're very good at. Would you please? I think that would be awesome. And she did. And so she prayed for me and one of my other guys, and it was fine. You know, it was an awesome prayer. I was thankful for it. And so I think that, if you maybe don't feel comfortable singing, if you suck at singing, I think you should still sing anyway. Now you probably won't make a living singing. But I don't think that should stop you. And I think the same is true for evangelism, that, you know, if you maybe don't feel like you're as gifted as Mattie Montgomery or Todd White or somebody that you think is really eloquent or gifted at evangelism, I think you should still do it. I mean, there's a unique perspective that you have that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And somebody that would maybe be totally closed off to me and the way that I would communicate the gospel might absolutely get transformed by them and the way that they do it. And so, you know, I think that to just move ourselves completely out of a thing or an opportunity because, well, that's just not me. That doesn't fit my personality, is to put a limit on what God might be able to do for us.
Yeah.
Like my wife is not a good singer, but when she sings, my whole house lights up. The kids love it. They start smiling and running into the room, and you know, and it blesses my heart, and it has, I mean, she's probably blessed me more than any other singer in the world. And she's never put out an album and never written a song. What about the singers
when they sing though, and you're like, that's not blessing me? Could you please stop?
I don't know that I've ever heard one of those.
I've heard plenty.
You heard Wesley Willis earlier. That blessed you.
That did bless. Yeah, I guess that's how you define the blessing.
That's right.
But you're getting at, just not writing off the areas that you don't feel like you're good enough in.
Right.
Keeping the door open.
Like if it's an important thing to do, you should do it whether you feel competent or not. You know, I think that's the point. Has
that been a big component of how you've lived your life?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I am surrounded by such unbelievable, amazing leaders, pastors, ministers. It's kind of a funny thing to see myself like on a poster or on a stage with some of these amazing people that I've admired so deeply through the years and think, gosh, I'm for sure the least qualified person to be here. But the truth is that all of your greatest ministers, all of your greatest leaders, nobody feels like,
That's so true.
I got this.
Yeah.
I deserve this. You know, like I have put in the work. I got the degree. You know, I've studied hard enough. I deserve to be here, and everybody should listen to what I have to say. Nobody feels like that. Not in business, not in academia, not in maybe in academia, not in ministry.
I am smart.
That's where people who think like that go. But no normal people actually feel like everybody should listen to what I have to say. Yeah. And like that's the big secret is you see people that are doing things at a high level and you think,
dude, that's the misconception. Right?
These people are so confident in themselves and they're so amazing, and they have some kind of mysterious qualification that I don't have, and if I did, then I could do what they do. But the truth is that we just think the message is worth feeling uncomfortable for.
Yeah,
you know, we think
fighting for what you believe in.
That what we stand for is worth standing for, even if there are other more qualified people out there that could do it. Well, they're not here right now, so you got me. And so that's I think the attitude that we have to have if we're going to have any type of actual impact in the world around us.
How did you find that thing for you when you talk about the thing that, like, man, it's work. People feel that in business. People feel that in different areas that they're called to, this, the marketplace or whatever, that they feel like, no, somebody needs to be doing this here. You feel that about ministry and evangelism.
Right.
How did you always know that? Did you stumble into it?
No,
Was there
I just wanted to see the world. I was trying to find a way to just watch it.
That's where it started?
I thought it was beautiful. And so when I joined the band, I thought, well, God's given me a talent and an opportunity, and I want to use it for his glory. So I'm going to preach the gospel on stage. And I did that. The first night in 2007, I preached the gospel on stage at a concert at this band that I played in. And after the show, this kid named Jacob came up and he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, you talked about like a relationship with God." He said, "I believe that there is a God, but what does that mean?" Mm-hmm. And I kind of explained it to him, and I said, and then the best part is you can have a relationship with God starting right now. Mm-hmm. And he said, "I want that." So we went out of the venue and stood next to a dumpster in an alley behind a music venue in Minnesota. And this kid gave his life to Jesus. Mm. We just, I led him in a simple prayer, and he probably said a cuss word, during the conversation, and it wasn't, it was messy. And then we walked back in the venue and he gave me a hug and said, "Thanks so much." And he ran away to go find his friends. And I sort of was standing there in the backstage area thinking, I want to do that forever.
Yeah.
No matter what it costs. Like that's the moment this is what I want the rest of my life to be like. So, I think that was the moment for me. And it's cool now seeing, honestly, even more than him getting born again, it was, and maybe, I don't want to say more, maybe in a broader sense than just him making the decision to follow Christ for the first time. The thing that got me, or the thing that awakened in my heart in that moment was to see someone make a decision for a new life. And so I get to see people often who are saved already, who are walking with God already, come into a moment of decision and to make a decision for to have a new life, to go to a new dimension, to devote themselves in a deeper way than they ever have before. And so it's really gotten broad, or it's really broader than just seeing people come to Christ, but to see people say, I know there's a better life for me, and I'm going to choose that right now. Yeah. That to me, there's nothing in the world that's better.
So you look back on that, that's something that obviously fuels you, right? I mean,
without a doubt, yeah.
Do you have moments where you are discouraged? Do you have moments where you want to...
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people, because when you hear people say...
I would say intimidated probably more than discouraged.
Really?
Yeah. Which is, I've got a neck tattoo. It's probably hard to believe I would ever get intimidated.
You get intimidated?
By
what?
It's amazing.
What is the...
Well, it's just, sometimes it's the environment. Like today, I, as I said, I was in the bank. Yeah. And this guy's talking to, he's looking right at my bank account, and he knows how much money I have. And it's very quiet in there, and everybody in the branch can hear what I'm saying, and I'm talking to this guy about his eternity. And, you know, the weirdness of that moment tends to kind of bear down on you, and you feel like, why am I doing this? And, you know, is it really worth it in this moment? Is it awkward? Is it uncomfortable? And obviously I try to be as absolutely respectful and honorable as I can. And if he's really resisting the conversation, then no worries. But, you know, I think, that there's always that voice of intimidation kind of perched on my shoulder saying, you know, you're not good enough at this. Or, the girl that I told you about in the airport, you know, my flight was boarding and there were other customers in her store, and I had just spilled some salsa on my shirt and my breath was bad. I had just eaten like a burrito or something. And, you know, I had like a long list of reasons that I probably shouldn't have this conversation right now, but I thought, well, I'm going to give it a shot. And she gave her life to Christ. And, you know, I think that in the biggest opposition we face, in evangelism or any other area that we put ourselves out there is internal. You know, I've never faced criticism from anyone else like I have myself. You know, I've never had anybody, after I make a mistake, follow me down the street and say, "You idiot, how could you possibly have done that?" That's me. Right. And so, you know, that sort of insecurity or intimidation is something, that voice of intimidation is something that, you know, tells us, you know, you stepped out once and you messed it up. You better never do that again. You know? And so, that's something, I mean, even still, I've led tens of thousands of people to Christ in my life, and I still every single time have to fight my way through that internal conversation.
Do you deal with it more one-on-one? Do you deal with it in public settings as well? Or is it mainly in the day-to-day one-on-one?
Like evangelism?
I mean, you're doing other things. You're ministering, you're preaching.
It's both. I mean, obviously I preach at big events and churches and conferences and things, but I feel like if I can't take the time to have a meaningful conversation with the guy at the bank or the airport, then I probably don't have any business trying to have a meaningful conversation with 10,000 people in a stadium. So
how do you deal with the intimidation? Do you just muscle through it? Is it just
I think it's just about believing that the message is more important than my comfort. You know, or if it's in business, it's about believing that the product is more important than the potential for success. The excitement of the potential for the success outweighs the fear of the potential for failure. And if that's the case, then you're already guaranteed success. If you just won't quit, you can sell any product to someone. And so if you've got a passion and a belief in what it is you're doing, that is bigger than, or that if the voice of your passion is louder than the voice of your insecurity or intimidation, you're going to be awesome. It's only a matter of time.
How many years were you guys actually on the road when you were with the band?
A little over 9 years, so close to 10 years. Yeah. If
you look back, what do you think what did you learn most from that season in your life? What's the greatest lesson that it taught you?
It's hard. It's kind of hard, I think, to narrow it down to one. I think it taught me that you can actually do anything if you're willing to pay the price.
Really?
Like I could become a brain surgeon if I wanted, I mean, it'd take a while and a lot of money and hard work, but I could do that. I mean, I became the screamer in a metal band and made a living for my family and preached the gospel all over the world. Those things don't go together. That's not possible. But we poured our heart and soul into it. And I think the idea that passion unlocks opportunity is one that we really put to the test. And it does. And so I think if I had to put it in a TD Jakes quality statement, it would be that passion unlocks opportunity. And if we can find something that moves us, that keeps us up at night, that is worth I mean, we paid the price. I have slept on probably thousands of floors during the time in the band. You know, we spent the first several years not making any money. We made $5 every other day. I had to be able to eat on $2.50 a day. That's how much money I made when my wife and I got married.
Wow.
And so, you know, she and I were homeless, just staying at friends' houses for the first 2.5 years of our marriage.
Really?
Yeah. You know,
Was there never a time during that when she's like, okay, you need to do something else?
well, that's why it was only 2.5 years.
it's still a long
that
time.
was, I got some money and we got an apartment at that point, but, you know, I was making $12,000 a year when I got married, like a year or two into my marriage. And so, you know, there were a lot of sacrifices that we made. A lot of times that my wife and I both shared a bench in a van while we were driving overnight to the next venue for the opportunity to share the gospel with some kids that might not hear it otherwise.
For you, it was always about the gospel. It wasn't about the music, huh? I mean, it sounds like,
absolutely.
I would think that you're going to talk about the music or it was just all
I
about.
don't care. I didn't really care. I mean, I didn't listen to that kind of music.
You
really.
didn't?
No.
Really?
Well, I just heard it so much at venues, and you know, it's like if you work at Taco Bell, you don't want to eat Taco Bell all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so I did growing up listen to that kind of music, so I knew how it's supposed to be, but in my own time, I never listened to that kind of music. But we paid the price to do it. I mean, it was something that we were passionate about.
Because you were so passionate about it.
Yeah, and it was, we never batted an eye, you know, we never complained. It was, if I have to sleep on a floor and, you know, spend the night in a van driving across the country, but at the end of that, I get to preach the gospel to kids that would never hear it.
Did you never struggle with like, this can't be it? Like, I don't know.
My back, I think, struggled more than my heart did.
Because I mean, so many people, I mean, when you think about if it's that easy, you could do anything if you're willing to put in the work. So many people, 2 years of that type of living, most people would be like, yeah, I'm going to find something else to do.
Totally.
For you didn't. What is the key to finding that?
You know what? I would even take it. I would say this. I think you can do anything if you're willing to put in the work, but you might not be able to do anything for a living. Mm-hmm. Even if you do put in the work, right? Like if you want to put in work to become a singer, that's great. People may never pay to hear you sing.
Right. Yeah.
And you've got to be okay with that. You know, if you want to put in the work to be an actor, like, cool, that's awesome. Have fun putting in the work. It's great. But you don't, you know, you may never get a star, you know, a starring role in a Hollywood movie.
Right.
And so I think that I think we have to understand that sometimes there are also opportunities that present themselves that we can become passionate about. Passion is not just something that falls from the sky arbitrarily. It's actually something that we can create. Yeah. And so if what we do, I mean, if you're a plumber, you can be passionate about that work. Mm-hmm. It can make a way for your family. That's an amazing thing. It can make a way for you to be able to invest in the kingdom. You can get into people's homes and help them in crazy situations and, you know, meet amazing, interesting people and fix a problem that they're having and swoop in like a real life superhero with a plunger, you know, and just do like, you can be whatever your job is, you can be passionate about that. And so I feel like it's important that I say, that what I'm saying is not, you can accomplish anything if you're just, if it's just what you love. Right. I'm saying that if you put your love into what you do, that there's not anything you can't enjoy, thrive with, be blessed in.
Even if you don't have a lot,
even if you're willing to sleep on floors. And
you say that passion is something we can create. How do you create passion? What do you mean by that?
Well, I think it's
there's a lot of people that say like I'm just not passionate about that.
Right. Well, I think it's an issue of perspective.
Uh-huh.
One of the most common examples that I give, this may get a little graphic, is
get graphic.
Is marriage, right?
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I'll counsel couples that feel like, we just aren't passionate about each other. You know, we have been in marriage for a couple of years, or we just got married and it just feels like there's no flame, no spark, no passion. How can we make that? And I tell them, well, what you guys are after is love, and you can make that. In fact, there's an act called making love, and it creates passion for the person on the other end of that activity. And so you can create it. And I think that being focused and committed and intimately connected to what it is you're doing is a great way to create passion, whether that's in marriage or in business or ministry or any other area. That when I'm not, working my job, but always kind of looking at that other thing I'd rather be doing, or spending time with my wife, but always kind of, scrolling through pictures on the internet of girls I'd rather be with, or, when I'm focused on what it is that God's given me to do, and I'm grateful for it, and I'm exploring all of the intricacies and the depth and the possibilities of what it is I'm doing, we can find a passion for what we do that we never thought possible when we were just having a kind of surface relationship with it.
So it's looking beyond the task. Like you think about say you're a mailman and you're like, I'm just not passionate about my job.
Right.
It's looking beyond the task of you're seeing yourself as just somebody that delivers mail.
Right.
And figuring out a way to actually engage something you are passionate about within your work.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Makes a lot of sense. Why did you decide that it was time to end the band?
I just wasn't passionate.
Just wasn't passionate about it anymore. Well, you can create passion.
That's right. So that's great. That's actually a great next step for the conversation, because I had been in this band for 9 years, and we had traveled all over the world, and we had done so many unbelievable things, more than we could ever have imagined. And I showed up for a tour, as I had done hundreds of other times. And I played a couple shows, as I had done thousands of other times. And it didn't feel like it fit anymore. And that's not bad. It's not like I hated the guys in the band or was angry or bitter or anything like that. It felt like I used to walk on stage and say, man, I love my job. This is the best thing in the world. I'm made for this. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I walked on stage and I said, let's get this over with. Mm-hmm. And so I actually spent about the next 4 weeks. I told some friends of mine that I really trust, here's what's going on. And I'm praying that God would either tell me clearly it's time for you to be done with the band, or change my heart, like make me passionate about this. And so I spent 4 weeks saying, God, I want to love these kids. I don't want this to just be a job, like, make me weep for this opportunity. I'm thankful for it. I'm grateful for it. Yeah. It feels like it just doesn't fit anymore. It's like a shirt that shrunk in the wash. Yeah. And so at the end of the tour, I was like, God, what in the world? 4 weeks later, what, it's been great. The tour's been awesome. People have been born again every day. We are having great conversations with the other bands, with each other. We're having fun. Everything's awesome. But what's the issue? And eventually it became evident that God was saying, there's nothing wrong with this. Because I was looking for what's wrong. Right. Are you moving me away because someone's in sin, or my heart's not right toward this, or something's going on? And I felt God say, no, it wasn't. There's nothing wrong with this. I'm moving you away because you've done everything I sent you to do. You're just done. And that's it. It's not, I sent you to this band in 2007 and it's 2016 and you've accomplished what I sent you to do. And so that to me was a great piece, that it wasn't running away from something, and it wasn't something broken that can't be fixed. And so I'm escaping this, sinful band, it's nothing like that. We were all still doing well with each other, doing well with the Lord. The ministry was doing great. The shows were awesome. But God said, I sent you to do a task in 2007 and you did it. Well done, good and faithful servant, and so he said, it's time for you guys to do a farewell tour. We're going to do a farewell tour. We did a 3-month long, 3 months and 12 or 13 different countries, 71 shows all around the world. And we did this long farewell tour to just see all of our fans one last time and tell them this was never about grabbing money and trying to get popular. This was about Jesus. We love you. The movement doesn't have to end when our band does. You can carry the gospel too. And so we got to do that, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But we finished.
So did you immediately know what you were going to do next?
No.
Yeah.
Still figuring it out.
You ended it without knowing. Well, now you have a ministry school, right? And all
so
that.
I right after God said, "Yeah, it's time for you to leave," I thought, well, what am I going to do next? And He said, "Let's talk about that when you're done." And so people would ask all the time, well, "Mattie, what's next?" And I've heard Damon Thompson say something about being delivered from momentum years ago. That you feel like you got to strike while the iron's hot, and that kind of kept rattling around in my spirit. Like, I don't have to capitalize on, now I'm doing all these interviews and everybody wants to know what's next, and I could have planted a church after that with a whole bunch of kids who just were begging me to get back in my band, and it would have been the worst. It's so I didn't, right? And people would ask me, what are you going to do next? And I said, I'm going to take my wife on a date, and then I'm going to take my kids to the park, and then we'll see after that. Yeah. And so I really did. I came home and just hung out with my family for months after that. Yeah. And it was awesome. After the very last show, we were driving to our house, and we stopped and watched a Star Wars movie. Stopped and watched Rogue One, and and just walked around, and we didn't have anywhere to be. We weren't, trying to maximize the excitement of our time together because Daddy had to leave again in 2 days, which was a pretty cool feeling. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, what does your ministry school do? What do you do?
So we have an online school of evangelism called BASE, and it's an 8-week course that people get. We have had 325 students last year. From all over the world, which is really cool. And it's cool because this community of people forms. People from Australia are becoming friends with people from Germany and people from the States. And so they're all meeting each other and cheering each other on, and people sharing testimonies and prayer requests and stuff. And that's really cool. But it's an 8-week course where that we're still, it changes every year what it looks like, but where we just talk about actually some of the stuff that we talked about today, practical evangelism tips, what it looks like, how to go about starting a conversation about the gospel. I mean, I found that most Christians don't even really know what the gospel is. Yeah. If you were to ask them, what do I need to know to be saved? They would say, well, just come to church with me and let the pastor tell you. Right. And so we talk a lot about gospel theology, and then we try to push our students to figure out how to explain the doctrine of regeneration in a everyday language,
simple way.
Yeah, without using the word regeneration. Talk to someone who doesn't know about the doctrine of regeneration about the doctrine of regeneration without using that word. And so, doing those types of exercises and just getting them to where
is it interactive then? Is it?
It is. So it's video. It's all video stuff with me and some of the other team and even some guest people. But there's homework assignments every week. And then we assign a coach to all of the students who is a past student that was awesome. So they're able to kind of have somebody that walks with them through the process, and someone they can bounce ideas off of and commiserate with if it goes bad, and celebrate with if it goes good. So that's a good dimension of the thing is that everybody has someone that they can call or text or email about how it's going for them.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What do you have on the horizon? What's next? Still just going to the park and taking your wife on dates?
Taking my wife on dates, going to the park.
Those lights have been off the whole time.
We got to start over from the beginning.
Restart the clock.
What's next is that I lead a ministry called Awakening Evangelism. We have an online school of evangelism. I love evangelism. Yeah. And yet for the last 2 years, God's had me preaching on almost exclusively on worship and family. And I've been saying any gospel that leads someone into a new worldview or a new lifestyle, but not into a family, is less than the gospel that Jesus died for us to preach. And it's easy for me to say as the guy that comes in for a weekend at a time and then leaves, right?
Right.
And I feel like probably maybe I should have seen that it was the inevitable end that God would say, it's time to put your money where your mouth is. So my wife and I and our ministry team and several other families from around the world, some missionary families from Ecuador, some ministry families from Australia, people from all over the States are moving to Johnson City, Tennessee in the summer of 2019 this year to go plant a new church.
Awesome.
Called The Altar.
Is this public? Have you talked about this before?
No.
Awesome.
So
that's really cool.
Surprise. And it's obviously it'll be a big learning experience for us. Last year, our ministry kind of adopted a missions organization called Ardeo Global. Now they've been around for 13 years and have planted 95 churches all around South America. And in the next couple of years, they'll be branching out to Asia and Europe as well. So we are going to be hosting a missionary school there as well. Now I'm working to put together a curriculum. Other people are going to implement the curriculum that I am building. And what they're going to do is, so we're going to have missionaries come in for 3 months at a time, and they're going to do 3 months of training and teaching on what is the kingdom, what is the gospel, how can we share it effectively. If we're going to build a church, how can we make that a sustainable, healthy church that creates room for, the hearing the voice of God, for the prophetic, for the supernatural, but is also built with order and structure. And so we're going to talk about those things for 3 months and then send them to another country to go learn the language and the culture, and then live there for 2 years, plant a new church. The goal for Ardeo Global is 10 years from now to have 10,000 missionaries on the field, planting at least 100 new churches every year. So it's kind of a wild thing. We're going to be a church plant, and that on week 1 is already overseeing 95 other churches.
Wow.
So it's like we're jumping on a treadmill that's already going full speed and kind of trying to keep our feet under us. But
you got a lot on your plate.
It's exciting. And honestly, man, God is bringing such incredible people around us that they're going to make it way, way easier. My job is going to be to get vision and decide and direct. And to take my wife on lots of dates and to just help to study and teach the word. And I think that everything else is going to be someone else's job, which is good. So, man, I'm really excited about it. I think that I've done conferences and online schools and ministry schools and you name it. Right. But I just can't get away from the thought that the local church is God's institution in the earth. That's what God built. And it's a holy thing and a beautiful thing. And this message is a message that gathers people. It draws people. And my life has been so transient for so long that people just can't keep up. They're watching YouTube videos and listening to sermon MP3s and those type of things. And that's great. I'm thankful that they're able to do that. But I think living in community and getting around families and really just growing up together is something that you just can't get on YouTube. So.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
What I appreciate most about you, and I think what I've learned the most, just even in this conversation, that I wholeheartedly admire is to hear how along your journey you've never become a slave to what you do. There's so many people that just, it's what I do, but you found this way to channel who you are and what your ultimate passion is through each season of your life.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you never become a prisoner to what you do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for dropping in for a podcast.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm excited to hear what happens in the future.
Oh, yes, sir. Me too.
Thanks, brother.